All right, today we're diving into something truly mind-bending. It's a framework that claims to map the absolute final boundary of all possible knowledge. We're talking about a limit that applies to us, to any future supercomputer, to any intelligence you could possibly imagine. It's called the AID framework, and honestly, it might just redefine what it even means to know everything. So let's kick things off with a question that feels like it's straight out of science fiction, but it's one of the deepest philosophical questions you can ask. Could a super AI one day become truly omniscient? I mean, could it actually know everything there is to know? The ADI framework offers a surprisingly clear and, let's just say, a pretty humbling answer. To even get to that answer, we first have to get our heads around the framework's core idea. It splits all of reality, and I mean everything, into two fundamental categories. And here they are. On one side, we have everything that has some kind of structure, which the framework calls domain D. And on the other side, well, that's something else entirely, domain G, the absolute boundary that lies beyond all structure. Okay, let's start with domain D. The easiest way to think about it is as a kind of cosmic library, a library that contains everything that can possibly be described, structured, or even just thought about. Now, the formal definition is, a bit of a mouthful, the total flavored manifold of structured existence. But really, thinking of it as the library of everything gets us most of the way there. And the scale of this library is, well, it's just staggering. I mean, look at what's inside it. It's not just our physical universe, it's all of math, all logic, every computer simulation that could ever run, every scientific theory, every single book that could ever possibly be written. And get this, even this very explainer you're watching right now is itself just another structured object inside domain D. Okay, so if domain D contains literally everything with structure, your next question is probably what on earth is left? What could possibly be outside of it? Well, that brings us to the second and much stranger part of the framework, the unreachable boundary, domain G. Now, this is the crucial part. Domain G isn't just an undiscovered wing of the library. The framework defines it as something fundamentally different, that which cannot be reconstructed by any structured system. Think about it like this. You can't put the concept of not a book into a book. It's a completely different category of thing. That's domain G. So, this leads to this really fascinating, almost paradoxical idea called the representation collapse theorem. It means that any attempt to describe G, to map it, to even talk about it, just creates another structured object, another little book, inside the library of G. You can't escape the library by writing a book about what's outside the library. Okay, so we've got our two domains, D, the library of everything structured, and G, the completely unreachable reality outside of it. Now we can go back to our original question about that super intelligent AI. And here's the framework's big answer, laid out in what it calls the superintelligence limit theorem. It proposes a hard, unbreachable limit. A godlike AI could explore the entire maze of knowable things, but it would still be trapped inside that maze. It could master everything within the confines of domain D, but it could never, ever step outside of it. This quote from the source material just says it perfectly. Superintelligence is domain maximal, not boundary transcending. In other words, its ultimate greatness would be in mastering everything inside the system, not breaking out of the system to become truly omniscient. Now, this same logic doesn't just apply to AI. It actually has some really profound and maybe even uncomfortable implications for how we think about theology and our ultimate concepts of God or the divine. This leads to what the framework calls the false deity theorem. And you can just follow the logic right here. Step 1, imagine the highest, most perfect, most all-encompassing concept of God you possibly can. Step 2, realize that this concept, no matter how amazing it is a structured idea. It's a model. And step 3, remember our rule, all structured models exist inside domain D. So the conclusion, step 4, is pretty much inevitable, that ultimate concept of God is an object within D, not the intrinsic reality of G itself. So the framework uses this very specific term, false deity. And it is super important to understand, this is not a judgment on belief. It's a technical description. It's just pointing out that even the most perfect model of the divine is still just that, a model, a representation inside D, and it should never be mistaken for the thing itself, for G. So, what does all this mean for our quest for knowledge? Let's dig into why the framework says this boundary between D and G is completely, totally self sealing. I mean, think of all the ways we might try to break out. More computation? Nope, still in D. An AI that recursively improves itself into infinity? Still in D. Thinking in higher and higher levels of abstraction? You guessed it, still in D. Even the most powerful, maximal theological imagination? Still operating entirely within the rules of Domain D. And here's the really beautiful, paradoxical twist. The more we learn, the more we expand our map of Domain D, we don't actually get any closer to crossing the boundary into G. In fact, it's the opposite. The boundary just gets sharper. We see with more and more clarity the exact shape of the coastline that borders that vast, unreachable ocean. Which brings us to the framework's most powerful and memorable line, a statement of what you could call ultimate intellectual humility. Only G knows G as G. Nothing inside the system can ever truly know what is outside the system. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If there really is a final, unreachable limit on what can be known from inside our reality, does that make the infinite exploration of what can be known, the endless mapping of Domain D, all the more meaningful? Maybe the value isn't in reaching some impossible destination, but in the journey itself.